only thing that has been agreed to is that Iran will continue to control the Strait of Hormuz and will allow ships to go through on their control. That is the only thing that has been agreed to.
The strait is going to be reopened, and we're going to negotiate about the rest. Beyond that, we don't really know much of anything. But I will tell you, yesterday, Iran was saying, we're cutting off, talks. We're not going to continue the talks. The president uses some extreme language, and all of a sudden, voila, tonight, we have a ceasefire for 2 weeks. Why can't we just say, you know what? Maybe we have achieved military objectives. Maybe we have taken down their military and their ability to export terror. Maybe we have decimated their missiles. Maybe we've buried the nuclear material. And maybe we've got 2 weeks to make the world a safer place. Why can't we look at this as a glass half full moment as opposed to,
but then why
we have to make it negative for Donald.
So even in peacetime, CNN is somehow still running Iranian state propaganda, admitting to doing so publicly and not seeing the problem with it. And let's keep in mind that Operation Epic Fury started over a month ago, and we have watched the media do the same exact humiliation ritual every single time, where in an attempt to undermine Trump, they buy Iranian state sources as known fact, right? For example, Iran denies that negotiations are happening, therefore Trump was lying. Then Iran comes out and clarifies, no, actually negotiations are happening and our state media is just lying to our own people. And then they're forced to do the 180 and say, oh, we're so sorry, we believe the Iranian state because apparently the American government only engages in propaganda, but surely this Islamic theocracy is going to be totally telling us the truth, and there's definitely not propaganda that goes on their state television. It's just insanity. It's not even journalism. But I want you to remember that these are the same exact people who constantly lecture us about their so-called journalistic integrity, right? How many times has Brian Stelter gone on TV to explain why actually CNN are the quote-unquote real journalists, why they have independent fact-checking and editorial standards. And by the way, not to sound jaded over this, but as someone who obviously does independent media, I have watched for years as these people not just look down on us, but actively try to push for our censorship and the ruination of our careers simply because we have to combat misinformation or something like that, right? They're spreading dangerous lies that are undermining democracy. Remember all of that type of stuff? And then, of course, here we are in 2026 where CNN on multiple different cases gets busted for lying through the means of spreading Iranian propaganda, is forced to retract it, but still we have this bald-headed fool saying stuff like this right here.
Trump and his allies are trying to smear news outlets as being unpatriotic for independently covering the Iran war. But history shows that most people see through that kind of rhetoric. Most people want and expect the press corps to provide independent coverage, independent scrutiny of what is going on when lives are at stake.
Oh, independently covering, you say? Well, here's the thing. In order to independently cover the conflict, you have to actually independently cover the conflict. That independently doesn't mean just buying the words of the rival country here as a known fact, but of course that is exactly what they have done thus far. By the way, I still want answers to my question as to why it is CNN was the only Western outlet that was allowed to go into Iran and report from the country, right? Seems to me the government fully understood that CNN, rather than other potentially Western media outlets, was going to act as the useful idiot. But I'm sure, right, you watch all that and say, yeah, this is independent coverage, 100%, totally. Well, anyways, the exact same thing here happened today when CNN tried to buy the Iranian lie about the negotiations, about the ceasefire agreement here that was reached, effectively trying to argue that, well, Iran is scoring a victory over the United States because Iran had forced the U.S. to accept their 10-point peace plan. And by the way, for the outlet that's constantly fact-checking everything, let's not fact-check whether that's actually true. Let's just believe some state source from the state media and run that as fact. And it's ended in such a humiliation, ladies and gentlemen, where they've officially been forced to delete that webpage and retract these stories. So let's tell you about the most trusted name in news and how they fell for what the Iranians were saying yet again. This is probably about the 20th time by now this has happened. But, you know, again, somehow, even with the conflict currently being over, or at the very least at a pause, they're still doing the same thing. You know, don't be surprised going into the midterms They're going to get this. They're going to get the election results from Iran, right? Iran says that this is what happened. Anyways, let's get into it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's the best way to support our work. It also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, so, continuing from our initial coverage of the ceasefire and what we told you, I think Trump pretty explicitly did say that he was accepting the framework of the Iranian 10-point peace plan as a basis for negotiations. And we heard that from a few different places, right? That's the framework, which means Iran gave us these 10 points. It doesn't mean we're agreeing to all of them. We know what that word means. What is a framework, right? What is a basis? What does that mean? That we're going to take this kind of fact sheet and move forward and talk about that and work based off of it, right? So that never once says U.S. agrees to Iran's terms. That says U.S. working with Iran to negotiate over these terms. That said, you can see the way CNN reported this, and let's read verbatim here. Quote, Iran claims victory, says it forced U.S. to accept 10-point plan. Well, that's not what the U.S. is saying. So who's correct about this? Let's find out. Iran says it has achieved a great victory and forced the United States to accept its 10-point plan, according to a statement from Iran's Supreme National Security Council report by Iranian state media. Here we go again. They just admitted they used Iranian state media as their source. Independently verifying, by the way. Now, you might sit there and say, oh, well, they're just reporting what the state media is saying. Okay. But I want you to also notice the way this is worded, right? Notice how there's not really a disclaimer. We don't know if this is true. This could not be independently verified. This needs a fact checking. No. They're running this as if it's a known thing. As part of the plan, the U.S. has in principle agreed to lift all primary and secondary sanctions against Iran and to withdraw U.S. combat forces from all bases in the region, the council said. Now, I want you to just ask a question. Does that even seem realistic? Does that sound remotely like something that would actually happen? Oh, the U.S. is going to lift every single sanction on Iran immediately. We're going to withdraw every single force. Obviously, that's not true. Obviously, that's ridiculous. But anyways, notice how there's no pushback. It has also agreed to accept Iran's nuclear enrichment, according to them. So suddenly now, Trump is totally cool with Iran having a nuclear weapon, right? And recognize its continued control over the Strait of Hormuz, according to the council. So we're just giving the whole thing to them. Controlled passage through the waterway would be carried out in coordination with Iran's armed forces, it had added. Now, if you even looked or you listened to our coverage of the Iran 10-point proposal, you'll know this blustering by Iranian state media doesn't even reflect what was given to the U.S., right? They did not. They actually backed off of their proposal to make U.S. forces withdraw. Strait of Hormuz, they argued, would be jointly controlled with Iran and Oman, okay? Nuclear enrichment, by the way, wasn't even mentioned. So you also will notice, okay, even if you had just listened to what Iran was saying, or the plan that even the media was claiming Iran had presented, that was not accurate, right? The Iran state media is basically totally making this up for very obvious reasons. But notice how Michael Rios here of CNN, their international news desk producer, just ran that, to which President Trump angrily replies here saying, quote, the alleged statement put out by CNN World News is a fraud, as CNN well knows. This false statement was linked to a fake news site from Nigeria. So keep in mind, they're quoting Iranian state media and they pretend as if they had independently verified from some Iranian sources. Turns out, according to Trump at least, this is a fake news site from Nigeria. It's not even real. But anyways, immediately picked up by CNN and blared out as a legitimate headline. The official statement by Iran was just released and posted on Truth down below. Authorities are looking to determine whether or not a crime was committed on the issuance of the fake CNN World statement, or was it a sick rogue player. CNN is being ordered to immediately withdraw this statement with full apologies for their, as usual, terrible reporting. Results of the investigation will be announced in the near future. Now, that said, okay, so keep in mind, if you're going to use Iran as a source, at least look at their official government statement, not what some random news site from the third world is stating. So here's what the Iranian government said, quote, on behalf of the Islamic Republic of Iran, I express gratitude and appreciation for my dear brothers, the prime minister, and all these people for their tireless efforts to end the war in the region. In response to the brotherly request of the Pakistani minister in his tweet, and considering the request by the U.S. for negotiations based on its 15-point proposal, as well as the announcement by the president of the U.S. of the general framework of Iran's 10-point proposal as a basis for negotiations, I hereby declare on behalf of Iran's Supreme Security Council, if attacks against Iran are halted, our powerful armed forces will cease their defensive operations, and for a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces. Okay. This is from Aragachi, by the way, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Okay. So you notice, even Iran's own government has not said that the U.S. just accepted their proposal, their 10 points. The U.S. is agreeing to their 10 points. Even Aragachi is parroting the same thing as Trump when he notes here, right? The acceptance of the general framework of Iran's proposal as a basis for negotiations, which is to say, even the official statements by the Iranian government back up the same sentiment. So where did CNN get this idea from? That the U.S. had just agreed to the 10 points? They'd completely surrendered to the 10 points? Not a basis for the negotiations. They just said yes to it? Absolutely nowhere. We don't know what the heck CNN here is even talking about. Neither official sources from the U.S. or Iran said that. But hey, again, some third world news site allegedly being from Nigeria. I suppose that is enough for these characters. Utterly ridiculous and shameless. But anyways, that's, of course, why Brendan Carr, the chairman of the FCC, responded here by saying, more outrageous conduct from CNN. Fake news is bad enough for the country, but pushing out a hoax headline in such a sensitive national security moment as this requires accountability, which you would certainly think, yes, is the case, right? Because obviously they're trying to undermine Trump. They're trying to undermine the country. But even if you want to claim this is independent journalism, don't you know? We're just trying to report on the facts. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're a propaganda site directly, right? Iran put out an official statement that simply cannot be squared with the one CNN's false headline attributes to them. Time for change over at CNN, which, by the way, is happening here very soon, considering that the network is set to change hands. Anyways, that said, the official CNN communications, their PR team, tried to start writing damage control here by saying the following, quote, the statement in question was obtained by CNN from Iranian officials and reported on multiple Iranian state media outlets. Okay, so again, you're admitting you got this from Iranian state media outlets. Now, you say it was obtained from Iranian officials, right? Where did you get the official word from that? Well, did that come from the Iranian state media? We don't know, because again, this is the official statement, okay? That you can sell, both the US and Iran are basically giving a similar account of what the agreement is, but you're saying that's wrong. Both governments are lying about the deal they made with one another because a random source here from Nigeria allegedly said something different. But anyways, we received the statement from specific official Iranian spokespeople who are known to us. So notice they're doubling down on their source. Specific official Iranian spokespeople. These are credible. These are reliable, right? Okay, CNN, have you considered that your Iranian spokespeople are lying? They're not actually reliable sources. Maybe throughout the course of this conflict, maybe at a certain day, at a certain point, you would have noticed that already, which is why, by the way, again, the media keeps getting humiliated at every turn. No, I guess not. I guess they're going to sit here and claim that their reporting here was accurate or it was at all fair or trustworthy, even though, again, it's very obvious this was not true, okay? But here they are doubling down on it for now, except as you can see, ever since, despite claiming that they had a reliable source, they quietly admitted no, they didn't, because CNN since has now took down its fake news story that Iran forced us to accept its alleged 10-point deal. Now they're simply saying that they agreed to a ceasefire, right? So this is now the new headline. U.S. and Iran agreed to 2-week ceasefire. Iran says its military will coordinate passage of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what they're saying now. They're no longer saying the U.S. accepted its 10-point plan, because that is, of course, not true. CNN has further reported that Iran is still hurling missiles at Israel after the ceasefire deal. So you do notice that they're trying to give this idea, oh, the Trump ceasefire is fake. It's not a political victory for him, whatever. But it's already been well established, folks. The reason why even Iran publicly came out and said, the reason why that's happening is because within the minutes following the ceasefire, Because their communication in their country is so bad, it takes time for the IRGC units to be informed, okay? So let's see if starting tomorrow you see any more missile launches. I would guess likely the case there is going to be no. And by the way, okay, Iran BS's a lot, but in that case, given the fact it was about 10 minutes after the ceasefire was announced, missiles are flying off at Israel, yeah, that is reasonable to say, okay, maybe the military genuinely didn't know. But notice how CNN, again, just trying to run any headline they can to make Trump look bad. So, you know, you have to also kind of consider the game that's being played here, right? Because this entire day, what have we been hearing from the liberals? Oh, can you believe it? Trump is going to do a war crime. He's going to genocide the population. He's going to do a nuclear weapon. He said the civilization's going to die. All of this garbage, right? And then the very moment that he doesn't do that and announces the ceasefire instead, they're trying to call him Taco Trump, right? So again, which one is it? So it's bad when he's going to do something. It's bad when he does do something. But when he doesn't do something, haha, what a wimp he is. What a B word. Haha. Which one is it, right? But of course, we know what this is. It's just mere Trump derangement syndrome. You know, that's just very simple. Had Trump followed through, yes. You know, tonight they would have said, oh, Allah, the UN, human rights, international law, please save us. They'd be comparing him to Hitler, right? Greatest monster of history. But because he didn't do those things that they were saying he shouldn't do, now suddenly he's a taco. Suddenly now he's a chicken. So you know how that stuff goes. And I would argue that's exactly what CNN's trying to do. That's why they focus so much on the negative headlines here. Although in reality, here's what we're looking at. As you can see, they've deleted the webpage. They've deleted the story, which I suppose is some type of a quiet admission that, you know, they ultimately know their story here was completely full of crap. But yeah, you know, again, there's just no winning with these people. They've been saying from the beginning, this is a war for Israel. What is Trump doing? He's a war criminal. He's lost his mind. And then all of a sudden now, right, they've turned into complete neocons. They're saying, why didn't Trump freaking bomb all of them? He's a taco. He's a wimp. He should have gone through with it. What do you guys, I thought you guys were against this conflict from the start, right? Didn't you want it to stop? Oh, no, you didn't. You're just going to take the opposite side of whatever Trump says. That's how it goes. The media is definitely egging on this sentiment, but they're certainly not alone, right? We see a lot of leftists doing this. We see a lot of the, as we call them, I guess, the third world right, who's, you know, been anti-Trump for several months now, and they're doing the same exact thing. And they notice how they do the same talking points as leftists every single time. It's just completely stupid. It's completely stupid. Right? Pick a side. But anyways, that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.